Congress has until February 15th to resolve a stalemate, largely over border security funding, or hundreds of thousands of federal employees will go once again without paychecks. During the more than month-long shutdown earlier this year, Greylock Federal Credit Union worked with federal employees who otherwise may have bounced checks or missed mortgage payments. I spoke with Cindy Shogry-Raimer, Vice President at Greylock Community Development Office, for the details.
Well, we're not new to this. We, being a community credit union, we really kind of keep our eyes, and ears out there. So if we see something really major happening in our marketplace, like when North Adams Regional shut down, we did the outreach. So when we saw the federal government, that is huge. And we know how many of our members are going to be impacted, the ripple effect. So being a community credit union, we wanted to get right on there, lead the way, and actually reach out and give some help to them.
So how did you identify people who are federal workers?
Well, we gave it our best shot. So we started with, we checked our database to see where your direct deposit comes, because direct deposit is all tagged. So we had our folks that would do our great data mining at Greylock. They looked through, they gave us a list. We gathered this list. It was just slightly under 100. We started making personal phone calls.
And so you said about 100 people, and then you reached out to each of those. What did you start hearing from people when you started making that contact?
It was, oh my God, thank you. I can't believe you called. A lot of folks were saying, we're okay now, but if it continues, thank you so much. We're going to take your name. We're going to call you back. So initially it wasn't, we're doing okay, but we can't believe you reached out to call us.
So what type of options were the coaching team letting people know about? I imagine some type of loan stall or not loan forgiveness, but some sort of delay on a loan payment could jump to mind. But what else?
Definitely. So we'll start with your loans. With the loans, we looked at what's called deferments. So I do have one situation where we did have a person that was still working, mind you. So even though the government is shut down, they work for the DOD, they had to be to work every single day.
They just weren't getting a paycheck.
No paycheck.
Yeah.
You still got to feed your family. You still need gas for your vehicle
Pay
because
the mortgage.
And your mortgage, your car, your credit, everything is still coming due. So they happen to have 4 loans with us. So what we did is we offered this individual, because they needed gas for their car, we're going to defer all 4 of those loans. So by doing the deferment, we bump up the payment due date. We did it 2 months. So that way, instead of that money coming out of their account, now they could feed their family, pay for the gas in that vehicle, and still continue working unpaid for as long as it would go on for.
And so now that the shutdown is over, at least for the next few weeks, while Congress kind of works on this issue, what happens to that? We'll use that individual you just pointed out. So 2 months, they didn't pay their loans. Now what happens?
Well, it's bumped ahead, so when it comes due, it'll just start business as usual for them. They actually got a reprieve. So when they do finally get their funds, they can put it toward the loan if they so desire, but they don't have to, because with a deferment, it bumps it up and it hits the end of the loan, not right away.
So an extra 2 months tacked down to the 12 years you would have paid on your mortgage or something like that.
Yep.
So outside of deferment, were there any other things that you offered to people?
Absolutely. We did deferments. We also would do stretches, like an overdraft line of credit. Some people we were looking to offer an overdraft because you have a lot of things coming in on your debit card, and like I had mentioned, food and whatnot. We would put an overdraft line, and the first payment wouldn't be due for a month. So if it were to extend, okay, your first payment isn't due for a month, we might look at deferring that out even further. So at least you can utilize that overdraft line and not be incurring fees, because we know they're just not laid off. They have a job waiting for them. So it's not like you're terminated and we don't know what's going to happen. It's coming. This is just a bump in the road that we got to help you overcome that bump.
Did you encounter any folks? We heard a lot about the government contract workers who it was unclear if they were going to get back pay. Did you hear from any people who are in that situation in the Berkshires?
So far, not yet. Mostly it was we're okay or we're getting nervous. And if people did have money, one of the other things that we did look at is if there's things called certificates of deposit. So on a CD, normally, if you tap into that, you would actually pay a penalty. So for those folks that actually did have money in certificates, we would waive the penalty and allow them to access those funds.
Because usually there's a term, it's a 5-year, a 10-year, something like that. And if you use before that, that's that penalty you're talking about.
Exactly, yeah. So we would just waive that and allow you access to your money free of charge. So when I said we looked at different things, and even in addition to loans, like we said, potentially even a 0% if we had to. If we knew somebody was going to get their back pay, it was just going to be a small, moment of time. That's where I said individual coaching, one-on-one, one size does not fit all. We could look at doing a 0% loan to get over that bridge, because sometimes with your mortgages, all your institutions, they don't all keep them in-house. A lot are sold on the secondary market. You're going to tell Fannie Mae, I'm sorry, I'm not paying you right now. So there's still obligations that have to be, withheld. So
And so
we
the
would have to
loan
help.
from Greylock would be extended to cover that
Exactly.
mortgage payment that is going to be outsourced to Fannie Mae or
Right,
wherever.
because if we own it, we can do those deferments if we hold everything. So we have way more flexibility with that. But when you get into like government style lending, VA loans, FHA, whatnot, there's other stipulations because they're not our paperwork as in any financial institution. There's other rules.
Now that we're in this kind of waiting game period to know what happens February 15th if a resolution is reached, or perhaps we're in another shutdown situation, have you heard from people who have called and said, how do I plan moving forward?
We just had 2 or 3 calls that just want to make sure that we're still going to be there, and absolutely. So the coaching team is all on standby. We know what we need to do. We're going to look at all the situations. We also had to extend it for food access. I never in a million years thought we would have to do this, but even for our government workers, and everyone in the coaching team has a list, and it's what I call the wraparound services. BCAC was announcing they could even do fuel assistance in some cases.
That's
so
Berkshire Community Action Council, right?
Yes, you are good. So Berkshire Community Action Council can do fuel assistance. We have a listing of all our food pantries, meal sites, because if we don't want people to make the decision, do I put gas in my car to get to my job or do I feed my family? So even hooking folks up with the different food pantries and sites that they never in a million years thought they would use, that's right at our coaching fingertips. So when I talk about running the gamut of looking at loans, waiving penalties, doing extensions, also looking at those wraparound services is something we take to heart.